And you're listening to Poets Cafe on 90.7 FM Los Angeles, KPFK. My guest today is the wonderful Kristina Cheryl Wong. Welcome to the studio.
Middle name, folks. I don't know why this one is using my middle name, but yes, hello everyone. I'm Kristina Wong. I am, I don't know that I identify as a poet, so I'm very honored to be here. I'm sort of a walking nonfiction, dirty, message on a bathroom wall, like, come to life. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds like perfect LA poetry.
Yes, that is LA poetry.
Well, I love and admire you so much and have been your friend and fan for, this is our 10th year.
Wow,
this year.
10 years. Yet you missed my show, Kristina Wong, Sweatshop Overlord, finalist for the Pulitzer Prize when it ran for 35 shows.
And I also believe that you recently won one of the great awards in American history, the Doris Duke Artist Award.
Yes, I'm flushed, everybody.
Was there a cash prize involved?
Yeah, it's $500,000. No, $550,000. Oh, who's counting it?
I know.
Pre-tax.
$50,000 here and there,
Pre-tax.
of course.
Uncle Sam's going to get a piece of this, but yeah.
How is that even possible?
I don't even know what to do. I'm still the same girl who puts toilet paper in her luggage when she leaves. I took all these hotel toiletries when I left New York just the other day. I'm still your old friend Kristina Wong. Listen, nothing's changed.
I can see it.
Except I'm rich, but still same cheapskate, folks. Don't worry.
Well, that's how you keep your money, right?
That's how you hold on to your money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see you today adorned in all your UCLA garb.
I look ridiculous right now.
Tell us why.
So I guess UCLA, my alma mater. I graduated from UCLA in 2000. They're giving me an alumni award, the Community Service Award, which I was even sort of like, I don't sort of see myself as a community service person. I always think of that. That's very Mother Teresa. That's very like, look at all the good, because, I'm kind of a bad girl. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Community service is like, that's like very vanilla of a term. And, but basically in the pandemic, I accidentally started a mask sewing group called the Auntie Sewing Squad.
You started a movement.
It became a movement. It was nothing I was intending to do. The things that I had sewn before that point were things like fabric vaginas, which I wore and performed with, or set pieces. I'd never sewn medical equipment.
Your fabulous quilts.
I never sewed quilts. I'm not even that good.
Those backdrops.
Oh, tapestries. Yes, made of felt.
So
no seaming. Right, like
gorgeous.
So just go from that to suddenly medical equipment, thinking it was just going to be a 2-3 week thing. But as it turns out, our government was not prepared for this crisis, and we were not prepared for our home sewing movement. And so Auntie Sewing Squad was a national collective of over 800 aunties volunteering their time to sew, and we were sewing for the most vulnerable communities. Yes, there were a lot of masks on the market, but even 500 days later, there were people on reservations. There were people at the border who could not access even company factory made masks. And so it ended up becoming this mutual aid effort. So when I think about mutual aid versus community service, like for me, I was so cranky the whole time that I was running, like community service is like, yes, I will help. Yes. Whereas like the whole time I'm like, why the hell has the government not gotten their crap together that we are still sewing these masks, And anyway, but UCLA is honoring me, and it's actually competitive. I didn't realize, I just figured they were just sort of pointed and threw a dart, and they're like, oh, someone called Kristina. We're going to give her this award this year. But it was competitive. They selected me out of a pool of 20 nominees. And so I was at the campus today with all my UCLA garb. I couldn't find anything on the campus because where there used to be parking lots, there's more buildings. Where there's buildings, there's taller buildings. There's no shortage of conference centers, which I never saw over 20 years ago when I was a student there. But so that's why I'm all decked out.
Or you look fabulous.
Like Bruin Pride.
Absolutely. The blue and the gold.
This sweater's dusty. I never wear this UCLA sweater, but
it's adorbs. Yeah. Also, there's a book involved with Auntie Sewing Squad, isn't there?
Yeah, so we're very lucky. One of my favorite aunties is our historian, writer, Shakedown auntie, Rebecca Solnit. She was able to connect us to UC Press. And three of our aunties who are also academics, Maylin Hong, Chrissy Chrissy Lau, who you remember from our project that we did 10 years ago with the Bus Riders Union.
Of course. For someone who's not interested in community involvement, it just seems like you constantly are leading.
But listen, I'm a bad girl. I'm still a bad girl. I got a tough side.
So you're cranky, but you do good.
I'm cranky, bad girl, does community service sometimes. You know
but also, a Badly Licked Bear is on your team.
Badly Licked Bear is also one of our aunties. Badly is our logistics auntie, and they drove the Navajo Nation van, which is basically their white van, filled with what was first sewing supplies and then, everything else to support our partners over in the Navajo Nation. So anyway, so we all wrote this book. We didn't even know who won the election in November 2020 by the time we turned in this draft, and it takes a long time, this publishing process. Like, it goes through all this peer review and edit and layout and stuff. And yeah, as we began to quote unquote reopen, we had a book out that documented this crazy time as a sewing collective and basically being the shadow FEMA in the pandemic.
Beautiful work. And then all of this community work, you've never stopped with your own writing and performance practice.
Yeah. So the Kristina Wong Sweatshop Overlord, which you miss, Linda Ravenswood, even though I performed it 35 times.
But you are performing it in my other hometown, San Francisco.
In San Francisco in 2024.
March through May next year. I'll be there.
Yeah, you better be there.
I promise.
Okay.
Wearing the blue orchid.
Okay, you better. You better, baby. But basically, like, I was all set to tour this other show called Kristina Wong for Public Office. I ran for office in Koreatown. I'm a very powerful neighborhood council person. I get paid $0 to sit in very long meetings and allocate a budget of $15,000 at community organizations.
I'm getting shadows of Waiting for Guffman.
Waiting for Guffman or Get Me the Hell Out of Here would be the sequel that I'm living in. But and so that show was all set to tour. It was going to be this live rally where like a political campaign rally, but a performance. But that was, of course, cut short by this pandemic. I was deemed non-essential, and suddenly I'm finding myself putting myself to work to try to just help other human beings by sewing masks on my Hello Kitty sewing machine. And so that becomes, I look around at my first volunteers, and they were all Asian women. A lot of them were Asian women. And I was like, this is really uncomfortable. I've become a sweatshop overlord. Like, we here are like all these college educated, Asian Americans whose mothers and grandmothers did garment work, so that we would never have to do it again. And it is a craft. It is a very difficult, underpaid work. And I completely, I think we need to pay garment workers much more, treat them much better. But yeah, I just had this moment. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening right now? I'm like, these folks my friends are not getting paid anything to do this. And, the irony of this moment. So that became the basis of my show, Kristina Wong Sweatshop Overlord. I just sort of kind of to screw around during the pandemic and worked out something on Zoom where I was just sort of telling stories of things I witnessed, local hospitals that had masks from the government that were broken but still being stolen and resold in the black market. And suddenly the elastic that I haggled for in the garment district is the difference between life or death. Oh, your mouth is all open. Linda's like all shocked now. It's because she missed the show. All these stories are in the show. Anyway, I'm giving Linda a free show right now.
Our audience, this will go on for years.
Yeah, it will. It will.
When I arrived at the studio today, she pelted my car with her orange peels.
Yeah.
Please, send letters, send money.
Yes.
Go ahead, Kristina.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, the point is, I've been making these solo shows. I remember at the top of the pandemic, people were like, looking at me running around, like, please, I need your, like, there's an elastic shortage at the top of the pandemic, right? There's a shortage of everything. Joann's is a terrible fabric store, which I say that because they were not useful to me as someone trying to sew these freaking masks.
Sorry, Joann's.
Yeah, sorry, Joann's fabric.
Just absolutely
fabric.
Forget about that grant we were going to get here at KPFK.
But basically, people were like, is this going to be your next show? And I'm like, we don't even know if there's going to be civilization, folks. We have no idea if there will be civilization or a future. Like, the last thing I'm thinking about is theater and what my next theater show will be. Plus, we're all living through this. Why would any of us want to live through this again on stage? But it became very clear that me, as an quote unessential artist, was witnessing things that I don't think anyone else was seeing. And I mean, we were seeing it, but it was like, why am I seeing this? when I think this really should be a doctor or a high-level politician witnessing this. Like, this sort of the phone calls I was getting asking for help, whether it be on this reservation, this hospital, this border community, this village in rural Alaska. I was like, these are calls that FEMA should be getting. Yet I'm a barefoot performance artist in my home in Koreatown trying to figure out how to get masks, to folks who have no other option but to write me.
You're listening to Kristina Wong on Pacifica Radio, KPFK 90.7 FM. I'm Linda Ravenswood. And Kristina Wong, if you don't know her, she is a performance artist, a politician, and I feel a great LA poet, mover, and shaker.
Oh, thank you.
I'm wondering, do you think you could thrill us with a little excerpt of the show, Kristina Wong, Sweatshop Overlord?
Oh, let me think. Okay, yeah. I wish you warned me about this. Let me think. At 13 years old, Joan of Arc, Maid of Orleans, heard voices from God to fight for France during the 100 Years' War. Similarly, at 41, Kristina of Wong, Old Maid of Koreatown, was tagged in a Facebook post by her neighbor Kim to sew masks to stop the COVID pandemic. And she said to that message, "Oh my God, you guys, I have an essential skill. The same skill I use to tailor the inner and outer labia of my vagina costumes can be also used to save a nurse. People say, if you don't love this country, then get the hell out. Well, guess what? I love this country. This is my chance to fight for the family that is the human race. World, if you're immunocompromised, if you don't have access to masks, maybe you're an essential worker. I can make you a mask. You can reimburse me for shipping, but you don't got it. Don't worry about it. I do this because my health is your health. All health matters." So that was my call to action moment.
Bravo. Kristina Wong, Sweatshop Overlord.
It's a
Pulitzer Prize finalist.
Yeah, baby. This is it. This is the best you could do, America, in drama. Well, Fat Ham, which is on Broadway, and won. But this is the second best you could do, America, right here.
It's a great slogan. America, second best you could do.
Or third. I'm not clear if I'm second or third. There's 2 finalists and 1 winner.
For this amazing play, Sweatshop Overlord, can you tell us how it got staged and how you presented it, the Kirk Douglas? Like, what's that process like?
Sure. I mean, to go from doing a show on Zoom to, oh my God, we're back in a theater again. I remember even Shay, when we were in the rehearsal room at New York Theater Workshop that did the premiere, Shay's like, I haven't been in a rehearsal room for 2 years. And I had just been staring at a green dot on my laptop and then basically would save the chat after, and that's how I know how it went, I couldn't hear reactions. But basically, they did, the stage manager and assistant stage manager taped pictures of faces on the walls so I'd have something to look at, because I had to get used to looking again at people in the face. We performed it in a thrust, because, which means, on 3, like basically the audience is on 3 sides of me. And the reason why we did that is because I had this feeling, like, all during the pandemic, like I can't wait to be with people and just be just so close to them. And so that was a choice we made. In LA, it was staged in Proscenium, but still very intimate. And a lot of it was being written as I rehearsed it, because this is 2021 that I premiered the show, September 2021, right? October 20, rehearsals were in September and then we premiered in October, but there was just so much to sift through. Too much material, right? And too many like little things. And this is a national collective of 800 people. How do I capture all that, not make people feel like they were cut out of a show? I mean, a lot was cut out. And then shove that 554-day experience into 90 minutes is a lot. So, but it's been very cathartic. Like when audiences watch it, they go, wow, I forgot half that happened. And they literally say that was so healing, so cathartic, which is so funny because like my past shows, I always feel like all I do is like give my trauma to people and then get out of there. Right. I'm like, about me, you take this, I'm out. Right. So, but to just have a way to say, this is what happened has helped me kind of contend with that time and just all these emotions that I was experiencing and the grief and the frustration, and to kind of put in a place where other people can witness it. And it was not just something that I would feel bitter about after. Because
Right.
in the course of it, I did feel really, in the course of these 500 days of getting masks, I began to feel really bitter. It started as a very patriotic, I can't wait to help my fellow American, to why are we in a country where politicians are calling it the China virus, are calling it Kung flu, are calling it these racist terms, are polarizing the act of wearing a mask when it's really just a health thing, and this is just only causing this thing to spread more, for us to live in this longer, and for us to have to keep sewing these masks.
Right. Something really interesting that I think about often is how time got compressed between 2020, March of 2020, and then say when you opened in September of 2021.
Yeah.
It's like almost a 2-year period that for me it's almost like a limbo and
It's a
what did
blur.
I do kind of time.
Yeah, I track it based on what was the cost of elastic from week 1 to month 2. Where did the needs shift? Originally it was hospitals, and then you realize there are people who work on farms, there are people on reservations, there are all sorts of people who don't have access to the internet or healthcare or water, who we need to put our efforts towards getting these masks to.
Are you still working with Navajo Nation right now?
Yeah, in different capacities. I mean, we are retired as a sewing group, but we became so close to some of these communities, and some of them have asked. One I can think of is Team Brownsville. They're an amazing organization. Please look them up. They deliver essential needs to migrants who are waiting at our southern border, and they're applying legally for asylum, and getting them everything from underwear, socks, non-perishable food. And so we've been supporting them and helping, just keep a signal boost for them. So, because they were doing work with migrants before the pandemic. They did it during. I'm not going to say after the pandemic, because, whatever now is, which is still sort of this. It is the pandemic. They're still working with them now. The Navajo Nation still, it was really revealed to us how food insecure and infrastructure insecure this reservation, which is the size of West Virginia, has only 13 full-service grocery stores. So some of these people that we'd be receiving our masks are folks that would have to somehow drive 3 hours round trip to go get food, right? And in between are these gas station markets. So I have one of our Auntie Teresa. She's a Navajo auntie. We first met her because she was running the sewing group there. She's a state senator now. I get to see her because I'm an artist in residence in Arizona. And so I travel there a couple times a semester, and I've gotten to hang out, and just I see her in all her senator garb. I got to visit her at work. And I was like, can you believe you were sewing masks with underwear elastic, a couple of years ago? Now you're state senator. It's insane, So, but all that to say, I have incredible friendships and relationships, and that's a lot of what Kristina Wong Sweatshop Overlord is about celebrating. Was this? Do you remember this moment, Linda, at the top of the pandemic, where it was wow, we're all interconnected, and your health is if you're unhealthy, I could become unhealthy. If I'm, and it was this moment where I felt wow, this virus does not care about who you voted for, anything, and
right.
your race.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had thought this is a moment where we could all come together as one human race. I really had this moment of...
I felt that too.
You felt it, right?
Absolutely.
And
now we're back to hating each other.
Yeah, now we hate each other.
But
now we hate each other. But we're back to where we were before all this, just maybe even worse. But I got a glimmer of that in working with these aunties, and having these complete strangers join my Facebook group, willing to drive at the top of a pandemic to go pick up a roll of elastic when we weren't even sure if me touching this elastic, now you touching the elastic, could spread this virus.
Absolutely.
And that sort of generosity is what I feel is worth celebrating, is the story worth telling in this pandemic. I mean, there's not a lot of art right now, at least live theater work that I've witnessed about set in the pandemic. And a lot of it's because, a lot of artists are I don't think audiences are ready.
Right. And people are also so exhausted from the pandemic thinking.
But I will say I I've successfully, toured this show. I was set in the pandemic. It's not about the pandemic though. It's about community.
Sure. And celebrating the amazing work you guys did together.
Yeah. And was sort of possible in a moment of fear. And it really was like the first time in my life where I still panicked. Believe me, I was nonstop panic, but I was like, what if I gave instead of taking? What if instead of freaking out and watching news after news article, which I was doing, I'd figure out, because we're all, this is, sometimes like 9/11, whatever, like these happen to a specific group of people. This was something that affected every person on this planet, right? And so I can't be all feeling sorry for myself that I don't have a show, But anyway.
You're listening to KPFK 90.7 FM. We're in studio today with the great Kristina Wong. I'm Linda Ravenswood, and this is Poets Cafe. Kristina, I'm wondering, do you have another little snippet to share with us?
Oh my God. Why did you prep me for this? Okay. There's one for, there's this part where I found a boil on my vagina. But I don't think we can do that one. No, we're getting no from the producer. Let me see. Okay, here we go. This once frenetic pace of work has not slowed down. It's just become more normal. Giving my phone number and address to would-be strangers online, meeting them outside my building for drop-off or pickup of materials. That initial moment of mutual caution where me and this new auntie wave to each other from a distance. Our eyes saying, hello, human. I'm scared too. Let's do something about this, shall we? I rush to load their car, careful to avoid exposure. We give the energy of a hug, but in a frantic wave goodbye. Involuntarily, I scream, I love you! As they drive away. Hopefully not forever. I just have to have full faith they're going to return with finished masks. Who were these people a few weeks ago? Were they always this generous? It's so weird to not be networking in Los Angeles, but for what? We don't even know if there's going to be a future.
Kristina Wong, when did you know that you were a writer?
I don't, it's so weird. It's a hard thing to own to, because I feel like, I think in college is that when I had a moment where I was like, I want to write my own work, but it felt like someone needs to publish it. Or I also was like, I really struggled with how to write. I always felt like you had to hit the first word and then in a linear form right to the last word, and that it all had to be magic on page. And it was so hard to write for theater that way, because the way I write on page is different than the way I talk. And so I over the years, I've found ways that I have a conversation, I sum it up, or sometimes I feel like I'm hilarious on Facebook, and I literally sometimes go back and try to cut and paste those comments and then rework it into a script. But
how many solo shows do you have now? You've
7.
Got Wong Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, that was my third one.
Wong Street Journal.
Wong Street Journal, Kristina Wong for Public Office, Going Green the Wong Way, Kristina Wong Sweatshop Overlord, a show called Free, ? Which, by the way, when you're a brand new performance artist, is very confusing when you're charging for that show. And then my very first show was a thing called Miss Chinatown Second Runner-Up. And I've done a bunch of little excerpt pieces that went nowhere, or at least didn't become big, long shows. But
in your heart, did you always know that what you were doing was really valuable, and that up on the horizon there was going to be the Pulitzer Committee? And
no, that okay. The Pulitzer is like, so I applied for the Pulitzer 6 years ago as a joke with my best friend Brian Feldman, because you basically pay an entry fee. I think it's $50 or $75. And it was the year I got beat out by a play called Hamilton. Has anyone heard of this play?
I think I might have heard
anyway. But I told my mother, I'm going to be a Pulitzer Prize contender. I'm going to enter. And she never heard of she's heard of a Pulitzer. She's never heard of Hamilton. She's like, she started praying to the gods. She was like, oh my God, I can tell my friends that, I mean, it was great that she believed that the Wong Street Journal could be a Pulitzer Prize winner. But, yeah, I mean, like, there'd never been an Asian woman who'd placed in the drama category. David Henry Wong and I had Akhtar, the only Asian Americans men, and I had Akhtar won, but David Henry Wong has been a finalist. But
that's criminal.
But when you look at the list, it's a lot of white men in the 100-year history, 100+ year history of it. So I guess I just, in my mind, was like, solo shows and me. It's it's a literary award. And I was like, I don't know. I'm talking about a boil in my vagina in this show. Like, I don't, come on. Like, so when I, got the news I was a finalist for this show is like so kooky. And they go off the script. They don't go off my, I thought,
personality.
Well, I thought clearly they watched, the recording at New York Theater Workshop, and they saw my charming face, and that's what kind of pushed me up. But no, it was all on the script, which I found later had typos all over it because it was a production script. Just what we use to kind of get through the rehearsal and for the stage manager to call the show. But yeah, I none of that was ever anticipated. But you know what? This is the era. Like, if you don't see someone who looks like you doing it, you get to be the first. It's a lot of work, folks, but
Absolutely.
You get to be the first.
You are the first in so many respects. Like, I think you're the first person I ever knew whose car running on diesel fuel.
Vegetable oil. It was supposed to run on diesel and was converted to run on vegetable oil.
And then it blew up.
And caught on fire on the freeway.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're the first person I know who that ever happened to.
Yeah, so I make firsts all the time, folks.
Are you still living in K-Town?
I do. I still...
Same wonderful place?
Yeah, I still live there.
High ceilings?
Leaky ceilings. Because of the rains, and I'm the HOA president, and we're broke as an HOA, so the rain's going to come tomorrow.
What's it like to constantly be leading, whether it is a theater movement, the anti-sewing squad, or the HOA at your building?
HOA or neighbor council.
Is there just something in you that says, I will be the senator? Like, what is that?
I don't. This is the thing. I don't really like the idea of leading, and when the anti-sewing squad was happening, I had a moment where I was like, this feels like leading a theater company, which is something I've never wanted to do. Like, just have a bunch of people who can get mad at you or like, well, why are we going there? Why are we doing this? But I just sort of left. It was like a weird performance piece where I played this persona of the sweatshop overlord to the aunties, and I'd be like, okay, aunties, if you abuse our reimbursement system, I'm cutting off your fingers, or if I'm going to eat your children if you don't sew more masks. Like, I was sort of playing this whole scenario like we were in this ridiculous situation, and they would go, yes, overlord. And I know it sounds like a cult. I know it sounds like a cult. But that's sort of the humor that kind of kept us going. And I was like, oh, this is what it looks like if a comedian ran FEMA. Like, just the level in which we just sort of kept joking with each other to get us through this moment and this nonsense of this predicament we were in, where our sewing machines were the difference between sewing machines, bra straps, cut up bed sheets were the difference between life or death for some nurse,
Right. Well, I, for one, as a citizen of Los Angeles, want to thank you so much for your continuing work.
You're welcome.
Across genres.
Thank you.
What's coming up for you in the next, say, fiscal year?
Oh, my God. Well, I'm working on a new piece about food banks. I just came from the World Harvest Food Bank, run by my friend Glenn Corrado, which is on Arlington and Venice.
You've been going there for years.
I've been going there for a few years, and they were a huge part of our ecosystem when we were doing the anti-sewing squad, and we sent a lot of that stuff to the communities, both at the border, at the Navajo Nation. So I'm creating a new piece called Kristina Wong Food Bank Influencer, and just like 500,000
Is your
other
name always in the
products.
title?
I think so.
I love that.
It has to be. It's good branding.
It is good branding. And you've been listening to Linda Ravenswood's KPFK. I'm just kidding. I was going to see how that felt if I tried. So I am Linda Ravenswood, the Linda Ravenswood, non-sweatshop overlord. And our guest today has been the amazing Kristina Wong. This is, as ever, Poets Cafe with our producer, Marlena Bond. If you would like to continue hearing poetry, performance art, political science melded into community outreach and healing across this world, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to kpfk.org. Kristina Cheryl Wong, what is your website?
It's Kristina with a K, Kristina, Wong.com.
KristinaWong.com.
Yeah.
I'll be going onto that website very soon to
Yes.
see all the wonderful things you're doing, and I'll see you